Good evening, everybody. Good evening, good evening, good evening, family. Mrs. Rivera, Elder, Pastor Tamika Rivera, my love. Good evening, everybody. Sister Amida, good evening. It's hot in here. Good evening. Thank you for joining another Walking Through the Bible. We are on chapter or on First Chronicles chapter 6 today, and I do apologize for coming on so late, having worked a full work day, got home really late, and so I'm ready to go, and I'm excited uh, to dive into First Chronicles chapter 6 with you guys. Good evening, everybody. I thank God for our apostle and our pastor, Apostle Desmond and Pastor Yah, for allowing us an opportunity to to minister and to stretch ourselves and to stretch our gifts and to walk through the Bible with our KO family. So we're so excited about this. I want to say challenge, but for this walking through the Bible, so excited. This has been a really great time for the 3 months that we've been doing this, and uh, seeing God stretch us and take us to another level and walk through this uh, chronologically in order as it happened. And so I'm thanking God for it. I won't be before you long. Um, if you have read First Chronicles chapter 6, it's a bunch of names and a bunch of lineage, and so that it talks about the genealogy of the sons of Levi and the sons of Aaron. So I'm not going to be before you long. Um, so we're going to jump into this and get this taken care of and get this done, and so we can have the rest of our evening. So again, First Chronicles chapter 6. It's the genealogy of the sons of Levi and the sons of Aaron. This chapter, what it does is it gives us a list of the line which would eventually be exclusive to the high priesthood, all the way down to those who have been exiled. Um, this list, the genealogy or the line from Levi and also from Aaron, and it's like I said, if you read this, it's it's a whole bunch of this person who begot this person and this son who begot this, and so it's a lot of names going down a list, and um, what I realized is that in verse, and as I went through the chapter, there's 81 verses, and verse 18, it says the sons of Kohath, which was one of the sons of Levi. Um, One of the sons of Kohath were Amram, Ishar, Hebron, and Uziel. Now, these were the families of the Levites according to their father. Their names, or who they were, they actually formed major clans. So Amram formed the Amramites, and Ishar formed the Isharites. I apologize if I'm messing up these names. The Hebronites and the Uzzites. Um, so these major clans had gone out and had taken over cities. These were Levites. As you went through the chapter, it's still listed, even those Amram, Ishar, Hebron, and Uziel, they ended up having their own list of family of children. Um, Down to verse 31, it says, now that these are the men whom David appointed over the service of song in the house of the Lord, after the ark came to rest. They were ministering with music before the dwelling place of the tabernacle of meeting until Solomon had built the house of the Lord in Jerusalem, and they served in their office according to their order. So they were as Levites, they were in charge of the music. They were in charge of worshiping God in the temples, and it said that they had been singing, and they were set up in the tent that David had set up in Jerusalem, that where the ark of the covenant had come to rest. um, it is stressed that initially they were ministering songs and music before the tabernacle of the tent of meeting, where David had originally set up the tent for the tabernacle. But it was their privilege to lead and encourage the worship of Yahweh. It's likely that it means that the tent which David set up was now come to a place in Jerusalem where it was now home. Prophet Williams, it's good to see you, sir. So it the when the tent had finally come to rest, it's saying that the Ark of the Covenant had now finally been home. The ark was now at rest. And so they were responsible for worship and creating music in that place, in that tabernacle, in the holy place. So as you read on to that throughout the portion of this chapter, it talks about the Levites who were responsible for making sure that worship took place. It talked about the lead singers. So there was even a portion of Levites that were in charge of the other singers. There were lead singers, and they were responsible for special events or special ceremonies that where they had to come together and make sure that worship was taking place. There were singers, there were lead singers, and then there were singers that weren't necessarily lead singers, but they played their role. They had a role in taking worship and making sure that worship took place. Now, here's one thing that I saw in this chapter, and it really brought to my attention as a musician, as a singer, as a worshiper. It took me to a different place. It said that the remainder of the Levites had responsibility for all services at the house of God, apart from their priestly functions. This would include acting as like security or checking for those who entered into the tabernacle. So they weren't just singers, they weren't just worshipers, but they had other roles inside of the tabernacle. So as a musician at heart, there are other responsibilities and other things that a musician or a Levite or a minstrel should be responsible for. don't just be responsible for making sure you have your music together. Don't be just responsible for just a singing or putting together a set list for worship, but it is your responsibility to, wherever there is a need in the house, it is our responsibility to fill that need. So the remaining Levites had other responsibilities and other roles in the house. So don't get yourself caught up with just the one thing. And that's what I heard God say when he pointed out that the remainder of the Levites had other responsibilities. Um, Around verse 50, it says that they were given details of what cities were given to. I'm sorry, we were given the details of what cities were given to the priests and the Levites so that they could carry out their functions of teaching the large amount of people, watching over their spiritual lives, and collecting of tithes as necessary. This would be an assurance to the returnees from exile. So now they were given cities and they were given places that they would be responsible for, making sure that they were watching over the lives and the spiritual lives of those who were in those cities, but also creating a place of refuge, or a place that the people who were exiled can come back home to. So those who were exiled and were kicked out of their cities, what happened was they needed a place to be able to come back to, so that they could continue to do what they were called to do, which was worship God, and to pay their tithes, which was a law that was given down to Moses. They were responsible for making sure that the city was taken care of and that the city was handled. And so what God is saying is that it is our responsibility, whenever we go into a house of worship, whenever we take over a region, whenever we take over a responsibility within God's kingdom, it is for us to go ahead and steward that position well, so that we have a place that people can come to and feel safe and feel like they can worship and feel like that they can freely give unto God, because we have prepared the ground for them to come in. It is our responsibility to make sure that as we are giving God worship and praising Him, that we steward it well, so that the people that come in have a place to worship God freely. Even those who have been cast aside, even those who have been pushed aside, even those who have been told that they're not anything, or that they're not going to be anything, or even those who were in a place where they were in a group, or they were trying to fit into a group, and the group is themselves kind of had that cliquish behavior, and exiled that person, and exiled that 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 group. And so now they have a place that they can come and feel like they're a part of something, they're a part of the kingdom, they're a part of building. So now it is their responsibilities to go out into these cities, and they were given these cities by God. They were given these cities by God. They were given these cities by God. So that means that God's hand was over this. That God's hand was on top of this. God's hand of approval was in this. I I went through this scripture, this chapter, and it, like I said, it was a lot of names, and this person begot this person, and this person begot that person. But what I read in between those lines was that God's hand of approval was over it. God's hand of approval was over it. It said, I wrote in my notes, it says, under the hand of God, the Levites took up their habitation in the cities provided by God. This was an indication that the ones that came back from exile, that God would provide for, they when they came back from exile, God would provide for their religious instructions and the collection of their tithes, as he had done previously. So God's hand was over them even before they went and got exiled. But because of the Levites and because of what God had instructed the Levites to do, when they came back, they were able to fall right back into place. So God is saying that no matter what the situation is, and no matter when you have fallen off, and when you have when you are a backslider, and whatever happened in your life, you still have an opportunity to come right back. And when you come right back, the people who have been put into place to keep that place safe, and to keep that place striving and thriving, God is allowing you to come right back in and to be able to receive as if you had never left. I thank God because he has his hand of approval over the situation. He has his hand of approval over the city. But when he gave the city to them and told them to do the things that they did, or that they were supposed to do, if they had not done them, he had left a warning that if they were faithful, they would keep the land. But if they were faithless, the things that he had promised them would not be so. So now God is giving you a warning. He's giving you a warning. And I'm getting ready to end here. But God is giving you a warning that if you do not take care of the responsibility that he has given you, if you are faithless in that responsibility, if you are faithless in the things that he have put into your hands, what he has promised you will not come to be. What he has promised you will not come to pass. So be a good steward over the things that God has put into your hands, and everything that he has promised you will come to pass. I thank you guys for your time. I'm not going to go much further. I do appreciate all that God has done with this walking through the Bible. I thank God for everything that he has taught me in the midst of all of this. I thank God for all that he is teaching us as we go through this Bible, as we walk through this Bible. So join us tomorrow as we continue this walk. We are in walking through the Bible. It started around Easter, and it's going to go until Easter next year. So I'm so excited about how much further we have to go and what God is going to say in that time. I love you all. Thank you for joining me this evening. You guys have a wonderful evening. God bless.